So, being classical beyond the classroom. I know that a lot of us love, one of the things about coming to this conference is all the cool stuff to buy, or getting to actually manhandle all those books that we see in the journals all the time, the magazines for sale. And those are great. But this roundtable, so please contribute if you have any thoughts or questions, is about more than just the cool stack of books that we have that we need to get through so that we can check off and go, yep, I'm classical. Or the long list of literature that we go, yep, I did it, I'm classical. This is about being classical beyond the four walls of our classroom. This is about how we play with each other on the playground, the way we conduct ourselves in the hallway, table manners and etiquette at lunch. This is an all-encompassing classical persuasion. When we are truly classical, our best behavior comes naturally. Teachers have a general handle on how things should go in their classroom. We have a routine, we have a system, we have ways to get the kids going, whatever that is, they know what the response is. I had a teacher who loved to say, I said John, and we all said, how high? I don't know why he liked to do that, but it got our attention and we did. And then he would say, I should hear a pin drop, and we would all stand like statues. It worked. But can we do that without those cues, with specific little personal things? Can we raise children to quiet down naturally in the real world? Do we really want to be that person on a field trip screaming, 3, 2, 1, to get everybody quiet? Or would it just be nice to have children who know how to see their environment and calm down? The hallway, the offices, being outside, in our fine arts and on field trips. Fine arts, that's a thing we called the special classes that you have outside the classroom, like PE or art or whatever your extra is. We call them fine arts. So I have another little paragraph about how do you fight. In a roundtable discussion that could be with a lot of strangers, or even when you're at a faculty meeting with people that you might have a past with, learning how to communicate about touchy subjects or things you disagree on is very important. Personally, I reflect on my premarital counseling, which taught us to communicate honestly, without name calling, and in a place of forgiveness. And I think that we should carry that on with our peers in our schools. We are in a church family, and we should be able to disagree respectfully with listening ears, that we can come back and have discussions later together and go, I really didn't like it when you said, it confused me because it made me feel. And to be open to hearing that person say that and go, oh gosh, what I meant was, or, yep, I said it. Sorry for hurting your feelings, what can I do better? So we need to be in a place of forgiveness and honesty. It's important as teachers to be able to have an open and honest discussion with our peers. So how can we be and best support this discussion of these topics? This is an open discussion, so I don't exactly have an outline. I generally have notes with some points, and I'm going to throw in some personal stories if nobody else wants to raise their hand and say, what about? Or I remember when. Some topics. Learning what's considered classical in various situations, again, outside the classroom, and how we will support each other. Not just support each other here in this discussion, but how are we going to support one another at school with our peers, with our faculty, with our aides, with our parents who are volunteering. What are our expectations? First, as a teacher, most of us are here as teachers, But then what are our expectations as a school? Sometimes this is where people will throw in, do you have a motto? Has anybody ever considered, and I was part of a brainstorming group for a couple different schools that said we need a motto as a school. But then I was recently in a community leadership class that said you should personally have a motto for your personal life. And I thought, oh gosh, that's a bit much. But then I realized I already had one. And it was excellence for the sake of righteousness. What is our point in life? What are we doing and why are we doing it? So how are we going to get there? It also reminded me of a couple years ago, we had a parent who started off proclaiming a Judeo-Christian background and becoming evidently clear that she was atheist. Going on Facebook and asking the community at large, what does your church do to serve your community, to serve this community specifically? And I just thought, oh, golly. Well, I guess I could go on there and say, well, I know my congregation has volunteers to go to the soup kitchen on these days, and I know that we donate money and supplies to the Pregnancy Crisis Center, and we've been to a lot of fundraisers, and I know that we have lots of different drives. Somebody's house burned down, let's do a gift card drive. Refugees are a couple towns away, let's do a children's clothing drive. I mean, but then I thought, oh, you're not supposed to let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. This is very showy, I don't like it. And then I realized, we raise your kids. We produce good civilians. We show them God and love and mercy and Jesus and forgiveness, and we create the kind of civilians you want in your community who are going to show up at your little events. So this is just one of those things about being classical outside the classroom. Inside of our classical schools, we raise people who serve their neighbors so that outside the classroom, they're the members of society that you want to be neighbors with. Okay, no one's raising their hand. Keep going. Okay. What is your motivation or purpose for any rules or guidelines that you have at your school, in your personal classroom, or for your general school? Do y'all have the kinds of schools where you have like a school-wide rule, whether you're in a classroom or not in a classroom, this is the rule consistently? Or do you have like inside each classroom, every classroom set of rules is basically the same, or does every teacher get to have their own set of class expectations?
Fourth commandment and how good and pleasant it is my brother's 12:30 week. That's kind of throughout our school.
Okay. I'm noticing that trend, maybe because I've been classical more often, is that it's boiling down to two simple basic facts, and I love it. And it really is about serving your neighbor and honoring God. And it can be school-wide. I think the things that we used to think of as what are your classroom rules is really just what quirks does your teacher have? Like, I want that paper turned in the basket right side up. If I can't see the name, I'm gonna lose it. Yes, sir.
Broad categories in 5 rules. The mnemonic device is Lord, keep us steadfast in thy word. It's L-O-R-D, keep. L, listen the first time. O, obey right away. Respect persons and property. Do your personal best. Keep a place for everything and everything in its place. Recited by kindergartners, day 1.
Nice. And then that's a school-wide for in the classroom and outside the classroom.
Yes.
Yes.
Our school-wide, we have listed in every room that's open and right away. I want to make sure we overtake with respect, order, unity, diligence, and honesty. So
Yeah.
it kind of covers
The whole stuff.
and then we just talk about what did anyone want?
Yeah, yeah. Mrs. James is the one who helped us at Emmanuel. We were going through our school rules, and she said, you know, this boils down to 2 things. Respect yourself and respect others. And we're like, oh, that's great, thank you. We can see the forest for the trees. Are you best serving the needs? Because this is a lot of work, y'all. Teaching classically, teaching Christianly. This is hard. Are we doing it for the right reason? Are we serving the needs, or are we creating issues? Needs for the children, needs of the families specifically, and then needs for the greater good, that at-large community. A lot of times, this actually reminds me of discipline issues. A lot of times when something happens, we go, oh, I didn't know I needed to teach on that. Oh, I didn't know I had that issue to deal with. Okay. Sometimes my boss would come to me and be like, I want you to do this, this, and this, and this. And I was like, whoa, I'm getting punished for what they did. I have all this stuff to do now. So we like to rewind it and figure out how to meet their needs. It takes a lot more time to brainstorm, and sometimes you really do have to have the awkward conversations with the parents to find out where this issue is coming from. But I strenuously suggest in-person discussions and not making your life harder. How are we to play with each other on the playground matters? Who has recess duty? I do. Oh, not a lot of people have recess duty, okay. So we might skip this one real fast. The three biggies for, I think, the recess and being on the playground in general is learning how to take turns, having good sportsmanship, and what to do about disagreements or any infractions between students. I never realized how important the good sportsmanship is, but it really is pretty critical. I used to just be like, kids are kids, let them be. And I didn't want to be that helicopter teacher or that ninny of a girl. But this is where pastors can come in really handy as headmasters. Having a man's voice and example tell them how to lose well, how to give a hand so when someone's hurt, help them up. We were blessed with this adorable family of large boys who loved football at every age. And their Pee Wee football coach out in the world had said, you know, when someone gets hurt, you take a knee. And they brought this little tradition to our playground, and it was just lovely. Everybody would just take a knee, and I would look out on the field during recess duty and be like, what's going on over there with the guys? Oh, they took a knee. What does that mean? Someone's down, they're giving him a minute. How often are they gonna do that? Well, for that kid, this is the second time today. Probably no more after this. But it was great to be like, hey, did you notice that they took a knee for you? That means they like you. Don't waste it. Taking turns is a big deal, for littles and for bigs. I have had to do this with 6th graders and 9th graders. And with 4-year-olds. But one trick that I did with my students was I actually had them pretend they wanted something. And then I made them go through the role play of, may I have a turn? 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 And the rule was every time someone asked for a turn, you had to say yes. Because they learned how to ask for a turn, and how to wait, and how to pay attention to the person just got it. Give them a break. Because they're gonna ask you in a minute, and then you're just gonna be doing this all day. What's the point? So pay attention to your surroundings. It's a big deal. And it's huge to get to learn that on a recess field. And then it helps in the classroom. They're like, oh yeah, I gotta pay attention, and it's lovely. On the reverse end, 18 years ago when I started teaching, I was given my first classroom at Memorial Lutheran across the hall from Anna. And I had two very large closets full of an insane amount of stuff. So of course I pulled it all out. And one of the gems that I found was a mimeographed report card from the early 80s. And one of the things that they were looking for a child to be able to do was respond to his name. I was like, what? Why wouldn't a kid respond to their name? And I realized this is a treasure. This is teaching a child to listen to their name is a big deal at every grade level. And me explaining that to the class before we go outside, whether it's recess or a field trip. Recess was like practicing for a field trip because they learned, oh, she calls your name 3 times, and if you don't come, you get time out on the wall. Plus the thing she was calling your name for, you still got to go through that with her. So you better come when your name is called. And the kids, I would tell them, hey, if your friend didn't hear his name be called, be nice and tell him, hey, she called your name twice, you better get over there. And they would. And that was great to build that camaraderie between each other. And they helped each other. Yes, ma'am.
This is kind of related to that. I think also for taking turns, but also to be patient and not raise your hand and demand the teacher immediately stop what they're saying and address the child. So you have to wait until you put your hand. I would so often say, put your hand down. Put your hand down. Say, wait until I have finished what I'm saying. Then we'll take hands. So they're not interrupted with their hands.
One thing that I have done with kids, I love the question and answers. Like, am I finished? Okay, hang on. I get to finish, then it's your turn. And yes, exactly. Something else that I actually did with my older students was I gave them Post-it notes. You think this question is critical, write it down. If you hear the answer, you can throw the Post-it note away. If you still don't know the answer, you can ask me. You have a note for yourself. Not getting them to actually use it for an in-class subject was another trick, but we started the process. And disagreements and infractions. Again, a place of forgiveness in Jesus Christ. So how many of you require, so the infraction happens. Mrs. Cholak, blah, 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 blah. Okay, go get him, but you have to come back too. All right.
Yes.
And then it's tell him what you said. Talk to him, not me. You're upset with him. Making that eye contact for a difficult discussion. And sometimes they're upset. They're like, oh, I don't want to tell her what happened because I don't want to have to tell the other person I didn't like it. And I don't want to embarrass the victim. But we have to have children who can be their own advocates. And they have to be able to defend themselves and know how to speak up. Not just for themselves, but for others too. Because it is just the best when you see them start doing it to each other. They'll go to another kid and go, I can't believe you just did that to me. Well, let's go talk to him. And then they all get together. Well, what did you do? And what did you do? And you start to notice, oh, they're doing a little bit about me. This is nice. Do you guys ever have the kids? I know it's really easy with littles to say, now give a hug and go be nice. It's not really gonna happen with the biggies. But I did have them shake hands, and that's back to sportsmanship. If you can shake hands with somebody without dragging them to the ground or jabbing them with your fingernail, we've made another step forward. Yes.
Another one for physical, instead of face to face, make them sit side by side. Because it's harder to be confrontational side by side. And I've learned that with kids. Now sit down and you talk to each other.
That's nice. I like the side by side. Yes, ma'am.
You can also use what you said earlier about teachers and peers with them as well in the premarital counseling, right? They talk it over and they offer forgiveness.
Yes.
And they apologize and offer forgiveness. And we do a lot of that instead of that, I'm sorry, it's okay language. Because I always tell the kids, it's not okay if that happened.
Right.
But you can apologize and you can offer forgiveness.
Right. I will call on you, but your story reminded me of something that was pretty great with our older students. My husband was the headmaster and peer teacher I had 5th and 6th, and he had 7th grade through 9th. And we would trade classes back and forth for different subjects. So we kind of both had 5th through 9th. There were times, though, where the kids really thought it was a great idea to do something, and I would get excited about it, too, and I'd be like, oh, he's not gonna like that. He's not gonna listen to it. And they'd be like, yeah, but. And so it was round 1 with me, and they'd get me excited about something, and they're like, well, maybe he'd let us if. Well, I could see it if. You defended that well, let's try it. So they'd get me going. And then we'd have the whole class meet together in one room, and he and I would argue and show them what it's like to go, okay, I hear what you're saying. This is my rebuttal. Literally. And it was like, so it's not gonna happen, and those are the reasons, and I understand. Yes, sir, thank you. And then, that was it, go back to class now. But again, just like we should with our peers say, I think I offended you because you haven't sat next to me in lunch for 3 days. What did I say? Are you okay? Are we okay? Well, I was upset the other day at the meeting when you said da 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 da. Oh, I'm sorry for doing that to you. Please forgive me. It's good to have those examples in front of the kids too, or with our own students. Sorry, Jeremy. I thought you were the one who did this. I was convinced that I saw your hand do this. I was wrong. Please forgive me. To say that to a student is both humbling and empowering because you build a relationship that is rooted in truth and love. Yes, sir.
Oh, the whole concept you're talking about, the it's okay language is, you want to get rid of that. I very much am into apology and forgiveness with my students, and I don't just want them to say, I'm sorry, I forgive you. When it depends on the context and the situation. That's where you have to be a professional and look at the kids and look at the situation and what's being addressed. But if you can cause the person who offended to see what they did, but then to take that next step and say, I'm sorry for, and help model that, and help them learn that language. And in that response, I forgive you. And I tell the kids too, forgiveness is very much a process. Just because you can say, I forgive you, you don't necessarily feel like always that you're forgiving them, but that you're taking that first step in that process.
Well, and again, the person who asked for the apology or gave the apology, sometimes I pull them to the side afterwards and go, it's not all good. You still have to kind of prove yourself.
Yeah, yes.
You can't just pull that stunt again.
Well, that's why I teach my little ones that sorry isn't a magic word. It just erases it all.
Mm-hmm.
It means what I did was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and I will do my best not to do it again.
Right.
So that they don't just I'm sorry all the time. Yeah.
Now, so for some of the particular cases, we'll actually take the apology to the next level and follow it with not just, please forgive me for what I should have done was. Because then if they have to say that out loud, they're committed.
Yeah.
So, being classical, having manners, agreeing and disagreeing with each other, how do we treat our guests? And this actually is from home and for home. I know restaurants are pretty common nowadays. Does anybody remember in their youth being told, when we have our table manners learned at home, we'll be able to go out to dinner as a family to celebrate whatever it is? Or is that just a thing now? People just go out to eat when they want to go out to eat. I specifically remember being told in a family of just 3 little girls, oh, everyone's doing so well, using their napkins, having polite discussion, using their fork and knife properly. I think we're ready to go out to dinner on Friday night. What? We're not on vacation. What is this? It was so amazing. And I cherish those classroom experiences I've had with my other schools when I actually got to sit to eat lunch with my students. How many people have lunch duty? I do. So, is your lunch duty to sit in the same room as them and you eat over here and they eat over there? Is your lunch duty you don't get to eat unless you're sneaking a granola bar out of your pocket while you wander up and down the rows? Okay. Lunch duty is amazing when you get to sit with your kids. And sometimes you trade tables so you get to meet other people. But it's, hey, what's going on with you guys? I know you're in chess club. Did you win 3 times again? Let's hear about it. Showing how to have a conversation and be interested in others. Or it looks like you might need a napkin. I think they're over there. Chewing with your mouth closed. Again, this is serving our neighbor. Yeah. Oh, I accidentally skipped one. I'm so sorry, but let's finish guests. I kind of scrambled it all together with table manners, didn't I? Okay, so, so guests. Guests come to our house. We know how to prepare for our guests, right? We know that we have to get the house ready. We know there's going to be a refreshment of some kind, whether it's just offer them a glass of water or if there's a whole meal coming or just a snacky food. And then we always have to, I don't know about y'all, you had to make sure that your clothes were decent and you had to wash your hands before your guests came. Did you guys ever do that? I don't know. So, and then you have to be on time and be totally relaxed, but also prepared. Okay. That's what I try in my classroom. Stay clean, be relaxed, but also be prepared, like always. Relax, it's your desk, it's fine. Are you ready? When you have manners that come naturally, though, guests are not scary. New students coming to your school aren't scary. And then being the new person isn't scary. Because you've been on the flip side enough times, you kind of get used to what's supposed to happen. And it's lovely when we can support each other that way. I do have the volume, seating, and cleanliness for manners. I feel like we've covered that. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say about it?
I just wanted to add something on the guests. So I'm new to classical ed and I'm also pretty new to St. Paul. And as a parent, because I came in first as a parent, volunteer, the coolest thing that they do is when an adult enters the room.
Right.
They stop what they're doing, they get up, they push in their chair, they look at the adult and say, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Schneider. Good morning." And I just thought, oh my goodness, what a fantastic lesson in greeting an adult, looking at their eyes, their face, and being comfortable with that and not intimidated, but knowing that this is how you show respect and say hello to someone. So that might not be new to classical ed, but it was new to me because I was new to classical ed.
Sure. And I've loved that. The few times I've been part of something like that. A reoccurring problem is a lot of people ducking in just to drop something off real quick, and the entire class going, oh.
So we don't have that problem.
So learning about how to acknowledge which guests when. Like when the headmaster comes into the room, we do not get up every single time. There's a big possibility the headmaster is going to be evaluating for the next 20 minutes. But when the headmaster knocks on the door and says, "Excuse me, Mrs. Cholak," and there's someone with her, oh, it's on. And that's when you do have your customs as a teacher to go, and we all know what this means. So these are good things. But yes, learning how to do that when it's appropriate to do that does give us confidence so that when we're in church and the elder says, "Oh, hello, Michael," you go, "Hello, Mr. Nelson." And it's just so much more natural, as it should be. Yes, ma'am.
and translating that into organic situations. You know, if a parent is at the school and passes a student in the hallway, that student should organically make eye contact, not, you know, double down and put his head even lower and shuffle past. Make eye contact, good morning.
Yeah, and you don't have to know a person's
clear
name.
voice.
It's
Yes.
okay to just say,
A clear voice, a clear greeting, an acknowledgement of every person that you come in contact with. Like, it's a big part of the classical model and presenting yourself.
it's a part of that self-confidence. It's a part of self-respect, but it's also a part of clear communication, which is an oration ability, which is great.
I have one more thing to add. This is hopscotch and Roundtable.
Yes.
This is Memorial. We do that at St. Paul now. At the end of lunch, I stand up, and the children just know when I stand up, and we listen to music for 5 minutes in silence. And it's the same piece every day, classical music. So by Friday, they're humming along and they know it. They know a little bit about it. And it's 5 minutes of slowing down, cooling off before we clean up. And it's if we don't do it, they say, how come there's no music today? So
Yeah.
it's an easy way to end lunch.
It is, and it's a lovely way to take an opportunity to teach just a little bit more. Just sneak it in.
Before we get off of guests, we don't have a you did well at home, therefore I get to take you out at the dinner table. But we have a you and your brother were fighting all day. You haven't done anything that I've asked. You've argued with me. You're not running away from us just to go and play. So I think it's, you know, they don't get to be the guest until they have shown they can get along with family. Now, how do you translate that to the school? I don't know. But maybe, I mean, you're talking about how to behave on a field trip, or if you do stuff with other grade levels, or something like that.
I mean, I think it is important to have kids.
You're talking about having guests come, and I'm talking about them being the guest.
Oh, so
You don't get to go unless you have
right.
done
That
one.
does sound like a
So-
discipline issue. But I think it is important, again, when learning how to treat our guests, it's important for us to learn and to teach them how to be a respectful guest. It's been awkward sometimes when we get so used to telling them, asking for turns and being polite to each other, they actually think, oh, we're so chummy. I'll just come to your house this Friday. That is not how it works. So, yes, learning how to be a guest is important, and that it is an honor to be a guest somewhere else is something that should be learned. So, what's the ultimate goal and why? How can we encourage our best behavior to come naturally? I like to use very inclusive pronouns, us, we. I really feel like it is a family. And we need to work together as a class. And what can we do to support each other so that we are our best for each other, but also it benefits ourselves. Something that I am constantly asking myself is, what's the point? And you need to be able to answer that question so that you are, maybe you're just following instructions. You need to make sure that you're following instructions that don't, that aren't heretical. But our ultimate goal should be serving our neighbor, but raising little Christians. Inculcating a spirit of pride in academic achievement, dress and decorum, wherever our students may go beyond our walls, but most especially within our own walls, will serve them well throughout their lives. Achievement, academic achievement, your grades, they are important. Your learning ability, it is important. Your ability to have that conversation in class is important. But that's not the only thing about being classical, reading the book and getting the A. I mean, we know that. It's not about filling in the bubbles. But I would actually argue that part of being classical is knowing how to dress yourself and compose yourself. I think that having uniforms is helpful. I like the streamlined mentality, and I like the way it looks in the pictures. But I like how it actually teaches these things go together. Don't put that together. Don't look like a Walmart meme. Tuck your shirt in. Have matching shoes. This is beautiful. God wants things to be beautiful. I'm not saying you need to have like the plaid and the shoes need to all be penny loafers. I'm just suggesting some colors without patterns. And tucking in shirts, tying our shoes, simple things. But having a spirit of self-respect, not pride in boastfulness, but self-respect pride. For academic achievement, dress, and decorum, how we handle ourselves, whether our students may go beyond our walls, most especially with their own walls. It will serve them well throughout their lives. Like on their first interview, whether it's for, I'm turning 15 and I want to get a car when I'm 16, so I'm going to bag groceries interview, or an interview for college, or an interview after college. This really does help them. The longer they've had this practice, the more natural it is, the better we're all off. Save your best behavior for home, and you will always be welcome wherever you go. Okay, any other thoughts? Ideas? Questions? Thank you for coming.